boys, turn around. John, what color is the ball?
The ball's white. Seriously? Bro, you just like making things difficult?
Well, what color do you say the ball is?
Black. The ball is black, clearly. I don't know what you see around, but the ball is white.
Without looking at the ball, I want you to both switch places. Okay, both of you, please turn around. And what color is the ball now? Okay, please have a seat.
Throughout our lives, we believe many things, and we hold dear what we think is right and true. But at times there'll be others who disagree with us. What we believe to be 100% right, they believe the opposite just as strongly. Well, how can that? Can't they see? You can become frustrated, we might grow distant, we may even sever relationships entirely. Slow down. Breathe. Step into the other person's shoes. It'll make all the difference.
Very, very good video, very important perspectives. In my studies of Ken Wilber's collected works, he refers to this, he refers to Piaget and many other experts on child development, how the brain grows in development. There's many that I've studied that get into this, such as Joseph Chilton Pearce, Rudolf Steiner, and many others. What he's pointing out, by the way, is called concrete operational thinking. It's what happens in a child up to about age 5 to 7. So the fact that he had university level students in the video, I mean, it was all staged, obviously, but the problem is that that's what's going on in the world. All you got to do is look at the last 5 years and see what happened when people held a strong viewpoint but did not ask the who, what, why, when, where, and how of holistic thinking to make an intelligent decision. And now we have a lot of dead people who only looked at one side of the ball and fell for it. The point I want to make is that is a level of thinking that usually begins to transition at about age 5 into abstract thinking. For example, the reason children often don't understand jokes is because they can't understand what the joke's saying beyond the words themselves. Jokes always require a level of abstract thinking. In other words, the ability to think metaphorically, to think in analogy, and to be able to see how one thing means something else. So the joke is saying one thing but meaning something else. Now that should start happening between age 5 and 7, yet research shows that today 70 to 72% of the world population is still at the child level of development psychologically, which is a serious problem. I think one of the lessons here is to always walk around the subject and look at it holistically. I do something similar when I teach my Holistic Lifestyle Coach Level 2 training. I show a picture of a tree, just like you took a picture of a tree, and I say to my student, all my students in class, who sees the tree? Everybody raises their hand. And then I say, who's sure they see the tree? Everyone raises their hand. Then I say, do you see the whole tree? Probably 80% of my students will raise their hand. And then I can say, well, what color is the tree? And they will all describe what color the tree is. Then I ask them, how many of you can see the back half of the tree? Nobody raises their hands. I said, but most of you said you see the whole tree just a minute ago. So what you see is they're not thinking, they're just reacting. Then I say, how much of the tree is above the ground versus below the ground? Most people will make a decent guess, but there's actually more tree in the root system than there is above the ground, because that's what keeps the tree from blowing over. The taller the building, the deeper the foundation, the bigger the foundation needs to be. That's just, common physics, and that exists in nature too. I make the point that you were convinced that you saw the whole tree, but you were actually only seeing 1/4 of the tree. You were seeing what was above the ground in front of you, not what was above the ground on the other side, and you weren't seeing any of the root system, but you were quite convinced you were seeing the whole tree. And usually after a couple of those exercises, people start to wake up a little bit. We want to remember to walk around the problem, and there's an old sort of teaching story that goes like this. If you put 12 fully enlightened people, like 12 different people at the level of Buddha, around a round table, and in the middle you put a multicolored bouquet of flowers, and you asked each of these enlightened people to tell you what they were seeing, chances are good you would get 12 completely different answers, because they would all have a different perspective, and there might be flowers that one person can see that any number of the other people cannot see. Why I bring that up is because people have a childish notion of enlightenment, that when you're enlightened, your poop doesn't stink, you can see everything and know everything, you walk on water, etc. But the reality of it is, people that are enlightened are just awake, and they're smart enough to know they need to walk around the table before they make any firm decisions. And we always need to ask who, what, why, when, where, and how for thinking holistically, or we will fall into a knowledge gap or a blind spot, and it can bite. So hopefully you learned something from the video, and hopefully some of these things I'm just sharing with you now would take it to a little deeper perspective. And I would hope you all agree with me, now in the world is a dangerous time to have university students that aren't smart enough to look at two sides of a ball before being shocked. Isn't it interesting that the color pairings that he did between people and ball were the same, so there might be a subtle message in there, and we have to be careful about dividing people, because when you take the skin off, we all look exactly the same and we're all expressions of the earth. In fact, many of you probably don't know what the meaning of the word ego is, but in Greek, e means of the, and go means earth. Our ego really is a word that means of the earth, and we are all of the earth together. We should be very conscious not to fall into social media and social engineering that divides us against each other and leads us to acting in ways that are childish, looking at one side of the ball and then getting violent about it and doing all the kind of crap you see going on in the world, which is what happened when you have a bunch of children in a playground and not enough supervisors to guide them, except now the supervisors are invested in keeping you crazy because they make tons of money off that and can control you. Today is a great day to wake up, clean up, grow up, and show up for obvious reasons. Aho.